today is innovation, that it takes the youths of this day to actually come up with ideas and to solve the problems faced by society. The Sports Center hopes at significantly reducing epidemics of drug abuse among the youths by engaging them in sports activities. Drug abuse, as indicated in the past, has been an issue yeah, for Mandera youths especially. And the project aimed at bestowing the youths of Mandera town with hope. The youths have been faced with problems associated with and arising from the drug abuse, radicalization, and terrorism. The facility that we had initiated has tried to fight these vices with some degree of success. I also serve as the operation manager for Mazingira Alliance. It is a community-based environmental advocacy and biodiversity restoration outfit, which constitutes of volunteers and representatives from corporate organizations, social enterprises, youth and women organizations. We engage also in schools, community members, and other institutions who are actually interested on championing for biodiversity restoration as a means of reversing the challenges of global warming and climate change. Our philosophy of leading a green lifestyle underscores the mandate, duty, and of climate change. So we are involved in reforestation, agroforestry, tree planting activities, in training, mentorship of schools. We have been established for over a year right now, and in that short time, we have had the pleasure of actually carrying out a lot of activities in the community. We have been able to plant over 10,000 trees in Mandera. We have engaged in schools and have actually trained over 500 students. We have also engaged the county government and have done a cleanup of Mandera town. And yeah, that's majorly what we do as an organization, excuse me. So I am really happy to be your moderator for the day. I am happy that you are all eager, and especially the participants who will like to carry on with with activism and climate change issues. That this is really a good platform to learn from amazing people that have been invited as our panelists for today. Now, briefly to introduce the panelists, we have two amazing gentlemen who are engaged in making our planet a better place. We have with us Peter Scott, who I'm really inspired by his story, because he was inspired by traveling through Zaire in 1990, when he witnessed deforestation caused by charcoal. And Peter said to himself that I have the obligation to change this and to make the world a better place. Peter Scott is a globally recognized leader in the clean cook stove industry. He is the CEO and founder of Burn Manufacturing Company and the founder of Burn Design Lab. Peter, we are very happy that you are amongst us today. He founded Burn in 2011 in order to save lives and forests in the developing world through the design and manufacture of clean burning cook stoves. In 2006, he received an Ashton Award for supporting local producers in Southern Africa in creating highly profitable institutional stove businesses. And we also have with us Peter Mull. Peter Mull is a young Kenyan who is doing a lot of work. He's only 28 years, but what he has achieved is beyond his years. Peter is the founder and CEO of the Global Youth Movement, and and the international NGO world leaders of today, whose main program is Stand Up and Shout Out, which many of you are familiar with. He is also the chairman of the African Conservation Youth Council, Global March for Elephants, and Rhino Youth League. He is the chairman of the National Conservation Education. He has also won the Kenyan National Diversity Inclusion Award for Youth Leadership in 2019. He was recognized by Her Excellency, the First Lady of Kenya, for his amazing, in 2017, for his amazing work in mentoring youths and youth work. Last year, he was in Geneva, Switzerland for the CITES COP18 with the government of Kenya as a youth rep, the second rep in the history of the United Nations Convention and SUSU, was the first official youth-run NGO at the UN Convention. He was recently appointed to the as the UN representative, youth representative for Wildlife Day 2020, where he also gave an address at the United Nations headquarters in New York in March 2020. So we are also happy that he is also with us. To the audience, I would really like you to engage with us in the chat comments. You leave your questions as we have our presenters do their presentations. And just a reminder that quarterfinals for the Hearts Prize is on Friday, the 30th October, 9 to 11. And to remind you that your presentations should include climate change and should focus on the sustainability development program. Our program today by Halt's Prize, I will go to the objectives, which is mentorship, integration from personal stories of our panelists, motivations not to give up on what the youths and especially the participants today are doing and the difficulties they're facing. How does the market look like currently? What do you do now ahead of the quarterfinals? Where do you look for partners? This one, I hope Peter Moll will take us through this. Community mobilization, how do you sell the idea and the vision to the people? The challenges that are faced and what life wants you to learn. What to do after you have written down your world-changing idea. After the pandemic, how will the market change? How will it look? How to set yourself for favor of our downfall? What role our public institutions play? How effective is the education system in light of the SDGs and especially goal number 13, which really deals with climate change? So I'd like to invite right now Peter Scott to take us through what he does, what his organization is about. And Peter Scott, I leave the floor to you.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Ross. I appreciate. Can you hear me okay? It's coming through.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, great. So, just to recap, my name is Peter Scott. I'm the CEO and founder of Burn, and I've been doing trying to save lives in forests in sub-Saharan Africa since 1997. So I had my epiphany where I decided to commit my life in 1990, but it wasn't until 1997 where I decided to do that through stove design. So I worked for 13 years as a consultant around the world, but mostly in sub-Saharan Africa, working on cook stove design. And maybe many people maybe people are aware, maybe they're not, but cook stoves are kind of the biggest unaddressed global challenge there is. 4 million people die each year from indoor air pollution from the result of using traditional three-stone fires or traditional cook stoves. So people spend billions of dollars on fuel, so roughly $15 billion on charcoal in sub-Saharan Africa. So it's bankrupting people. 500,000 people in sub-Saharan Africa die each year from indoor air pollution. And it's causing about 52% of the deforestation. And while it's not a huge driver in terms of climate change, it definitely has a climate component. So for example, when someone buys one of our products, the Chikokoa improved Maca charcoal stove, they're reducing about 4.4 tons of charcoal per year per annum per stove, which is like taking 2 cars off of the road. So there is on a unit basis, there's potential to make a big impact by using improved cook stoves, whether that's wood or charcoal, agricultural waste, or even electric. So yeah, anyway, so yeah, it's unfortunate that there hasn't been the interest globally to really invest in this space. But I think, Burn has really helped to transform the whole sector. So in 2010, I decided to stop being a consultant and I launched Burn. So yeah, almost, I guess, over 10 years ago. So first as a nonprofit design lab and then as a social enterprise manufacturing company. So yeah, it's been 10 years to build the foundation of the business. And now, we're just about to sell our 1 millionth unit. So that happens in 2 weeks time, roughly. So yeah, it's a incredible challenge, a labor of love to build a company from scratch to now where we, sold 1 million units. I employ over 400 people, and we now really have probably the greatest R&D team assembled on the planet that's based here in Ruiru, Kenya, designing the next generation of improved biomass, LPG, hybrid electric stoves. Yeah, so I mean, obviously there's lots to talk about in that journey. We went from, I took my life savings to start this company. And, in America, there's something called a food bank. So when you're really poor, you go and get free food. And that's where, most of my team went to the food bank because we just didn't have any money. So we were getting donated food. Oh, Hassan Faraz saying he doesn't hear anything. I don't know. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Peter, we can hear you, Peter. We can hear you. Continue, please.
Great.
We
great.
hear you loud and clear.
Great. Thanks. So yeah, it's it's an incredibly long journey to fund a social enterprise that's trying to make real positive impact. It's especially a manufacturing company, in Africa. People tend to want to fund, fintech or maybe mostly fintech. So unfortunately, which is fine, but for us, we believe like it's really going to be hardware that's really going to transform people's lives. I don't know how long I can keep talking. I mean, I'd rather make this kind of interactive. I also know the panelists want to talk, so I don't really know how long you want me to talk about Burn. Is that enough to kind of get people the idea, and then we can come back?
Yeah. We really want this to be an interactive session. So we'd also want you to, we don't actually want you to be limited in terms of explaining what you guys do, because you're doing a really great job. But to the participant, we also really encourage you to ask questions regarding what Peter's thoughts and the Burn industry is really about, what it's all about. And we'll be asking questions, but I think we don't want to limit you with your presentation about Burn, and so that we can learn more about what you guys really do. And in the question section, I'll be looking at the chat. So any questions addressed to you, I'll kindly let you know so that you can explain further. Thank you.
Sorry, you'd like me to explain further, or you'd like me to pause for questions?
No, you can continue as I check the questions, and then I'll let you know.
Sure. Yeah. Well, so sure, I'll just tell you more about the Burn's history. So, we focused on building the world's most fuel efficient charcoal or maca stove because that we realized most urban households in sub-Saharan Africa relied on charcoal. And so people hadn't really invested any energy or time in that, maybe since the early 80s when they designed something called a Kenyan ceramic Chico, which was a fine design back then. But so, yeah, we raised a few $1 million, assembled a team, and succeeded in building the world's most fuel efficient charcoal stove. So that was kind of the first step. And then we got a grant from the University of Washington, and then we designed the world's most fuel efficient wood stove. So that has actually been independently verified. So it's like 4x the efficiency of a 3-stone fire. And then recently we've been designing a number of forced draft stoves that allow you to burn ag waste or wet wood. We now have a new LPG stove, a new electric pressure cooker. And so, yeah, that team is raising money, doing R&D and launching products. And so the goal is to really turn Kenya into a manufacturing hub for the entire continent. So people often overlook the potential for manufacturing here in Kenya. Labor is roughly half the cost of what it is in China. So we can actually beat Asian imports on pricing and quality. So, I highly encourage people to look at the local manufacturing potential. And yeah, maybe I'll just pause there. I'd much rather take questions. Blah blah blah. I just don't want to talk. Still fine. Just
yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Peter. So, and normally what we have, the education system in Africa and in Kenya especially does not really encourage or does not encourage innovation, and what you're doing is really an innovative means of dealing with climate change. So what would you tell the participants right now, like, to encourage them being innovative, to bring out innovative solutions to the challenges we face?
Yeah, well, what's interesting is when we first started, all of my engineers were from the US or were expats, but now half of my team are Kenyans or Uganda local engineers, and half are expats. And so, like the quality of candidates coming out of university and the level of talent in Kenya has really grown by leaps and bounds in the last few years. So it's actually really promising that the new class of graduates coming out have a much different sort of mindset or approach than even the people that were coming out a few years before. It's just, I think you really need to team up with existing, or look at the potential for teaming up with existing entities, because for Burn, it's an enormous challenge to raise capital in the developed world or in Kenya is really difficult. And so again, it took us 10 years and I'm still spending all of my time raising money. So the idea of one innovator, like the Steve Jobs or the Mark Zuckerberg, having an idea and then going out and raising, $50 million to execute is really, I think, there aren't many examples of that in East Africa. So I think it's really like trying to team up with existing entities, so you can try to see if you can incubate yourself within an existing successful company, because capital, especially now with COVID, is even more difficult to reach. So I think it's trying to do it all on your own is definitely a challenge. So I would definitely encourage people to, see how, if you can get, protect yourself, like protect your intellectual property, and then see if you can collaborate with existing companies. So I think that would be my biggest word of advice for people who are interested in innovation.
Yeah, thank you. That was really insightful, and I'd really like you to give the audience kind of really what the real life situation is, because once you are starting something that you don't have anything that is familiar to it, because innovation really involves like coming up with something that is new and really not there are no existing benchmarks for that. Like for example, starting my organization, the Mandela Sports Creation, and building the sports center where we had nothing of that caliber, and we had nothing to compare with it. So there's that fear because you're also putting some resources and time, and there's that risk involved. So how did you deal with it? Because coming up with something that the ban, the GCOs and all that, how did you manage the risks involved? What kept you going? Yeah. And what would advice would you be giving to maybe these social enterprises that really don't have other platforms in which they can compare with?
Well, there's a lot of questions there. I don't know, which one do you want me to, any one in particular order? Do you want to just try one? Risk.
Try.
I think that the key thing, I mean, it's difficult, but I mean, when you have few resources, you have to validate product market fit as soon as possible. So like if you have a concept and it hasn't been tested by anyone, that it's probably not the right concept. So, it can't just be that your mother likes it, and you have to be solving a real problem for people. So it really needs to start with what are people's problems as opposed to what you think people's problems are. So, and that's often been the problem in a variety of different enterprises, is that people, especially engineers or designers, just like to make things, and they're not really seeing, are they solving a global problem or a household problem. So I think that it's best to like go in and really study and look and keep your eyes open. So, I took a hiatus from cook stoves for some years and worked just on tobacco curing, because tobacco curing in sub-Saharan Africa was destroying forests. So then I said, I'll design the world's most fuel efficient tobacco curing system to save forests. So like and that I only experienced that from like sitting at the side of the road and watching logging trucks go to feed these furnaces that were curing tobacco. So again, it's like looking at what's really happening on the planet now. And like clearly the fabric of the earth being unraveled, you know, from, deforestation to, destruction of coral reefs, the acidification of the ocean. I mean, this is all happening in real time. And so if you're spending your time making an app to help people get onto like TikTok or something, like, it's really the time to act and do something really meaningful. So if you're not really solving a real global challenge, you really need to like rethink what you're doing now. So yeah, I think I would just say like aim really big, but make sure on a household level you're really solving someone's individual problem. So, any idiot could have looked and seen how much money people are spending on charcoal in sub-Saharan Africa and realized like that's the challenge. That people are spending money, it's having all these other negative impacts. Can you make a product that will help them save money and will have all these trickle down benefits? So it's like, go and spend time looking at your, where you live, where your parents live, look at different communities and then say like, what's the real challenge for those people? Is that tied to climate change, and can we address it?
Thank you very much, Peter.
Wes, can I add to what has just been discussed?
Yeah, please do so, Peter.
So I
was
think
just about to introduce.
No worries. I think what Peter Scott is saying is very important, because most of the times when you're addressing what we call innovation solutions or community or social solutions, you have to realize that the way that you will find your niche or the way that you'll set yourself apart from others is finding a gap in society or finding an issue in society and solving it. And so that is what I agree with Peter Scott, is the relevance of your idea. Is your idea just totally not even connecting to what is happening at the moment? Or is it relevant and does it actually make sense? And so whether it's a social enterprise, whether it's a business, no matter what innovation you're coming up with, if you can find the gap in society and fill it, or find the need and serve it, then you'll definitely be doing something that matters. And just to add on before I pass it back to you, Wes, I think also one thing that we have to realize as young people is that there's a reason why you're here. And the reason why you're here is to influence your space and to influence your community and to influence wherever you are. Now, the way you influence where you are is find out what is your gift. What is it that you have to offer? What is your talent? What is it that you are able to give to the world? And I always say, find your gift, serve it to the world, and that is how you not only make money, but impact. And so people need to realize that, especially in this day and age, when it comes to climate change, climate action, when it comes to conservation, we have to realize that the only way we're going to make a difference is by adding our unique perspective. And I love what Peter Scott, when he introduced what he's doing, he added his unique perspective. He added his unique innovation. And so people have to realize, you don't have to be like everyone else. You need to be like you, and being you is what will make the difference. It's what will make you stand out, and it's what will make you get the extra mile, get that resources, get the finances, because you're being yourself. And I always say this, if you're hiding, and if you're Cheza in Chini, and if you're not being yourself, then when opportunities come looking for you, will they recognize you? No, they won't. So there's some opportunities out there that are looking exactly for who you are. But if you can't be who you are, then the opportunity will miss you. So I think in this day and age with social media and everything, people are trying to really be like other people, trying to change to be like somebody else. But really, in the essence, you need to be yourself and influence your space and serve your gift. And that is how you find your niche, and you'll make that difference in terms of impact and in terms of profit, if that is what you're after.
Wow, that was really nice. And Peter Moll, I'd really like, because I'm seeing people are really asking, what does Peter Moll do? And I don't think I did you enough justice in the introduction. So I'd really like to give you an opportunity to tell us more about what you do, introduce yourself. And as you do that, Peter Scott, if you have any additions to what Peter Moll does, and kindly feel free to join in, because really what we're trying to do is to have a conversation and break the formality of the normal norms in the meetings. Yeah, so we really want to have an engaging conversation with both our panelists. So whenever you feel like, Peter Scott, we really encourage you to also jump in. So Peter Moll, kindly please.
Okay, so basically, my name is Peter Frederick Mull. I am 28 years old. I started an organization called Stand Up Shoutout in 2013 when I was 20. And the reason why I started this organization is because I was uncomfortable. I was uncomfortable with how things were in life. I was uncomfortable with how I saw my peers wasting their resources, their time, their talent. I was uncomfortable with the lack of platform or opportunity. And when you're uncomfortable, you have two options. You can either hide or change. And I believe maybe I hid before I was 20, maybe I was hiding. I see other people started doing their own things when they were 16 or 15. So who knows, I could have started earlier, but I know God has his own timing. So I decided to change, and being so uncomfortable, most people, when they're uncomfortable, they really shy away from it. But it's in that uncomfort where the most change happens. It's in the uncomfort where you innovate and create the tomorrow you want, because you're not satisfied with today. And so you need to ask yourself in your own journey, what is it that I'm not satisfied with today that I need to create a tomorrow where I will be satisfied? So Stand Up Shoutout started as simple as this. Stand up. What do you stand for? What do you believe in? What are your values? What are your morals? What do you safeguard? What do you protect? And then shout out not just noise, but positive solution-oriented action. And if there's one thing that I loved about Peter Scott's journey that I resonate with, is how you have to allow your idea to evolve. So when I started SUSO, yes, I knew it was going to grow how it's grown today, but it was about allowing it to grow. So SUSO deals with two pillars: youth engagement and youth empowerment. And youth empowerment is about giving the young person the skills, mindset, training, understanding, putting them and connecting them to society. One thing you have to understand is the isolation of our youth is what is making us prone to manipulation. When you're isolated as a young person, when you don't feel connected to your community, to your society, that is when you're prone to, whether it's extremism, drug abuse, crime, you name it. So with youth empowerment, it's really about how can you help a young person see how they fit into society? How can they, with whatever they have, be part of society? Now, after you empower someone, we then have youth engagement. Youth engagement is now opportunities for your dreams, opportunities for your talents. This is where we have different and several platforms where young people can apply knowledge. For me, application of knowledge is important. We have so many intelligent young people in Africa, in Kenya, but they do not apply that knowledge. All that they've learned in high school, university, all they've learned in all their trainings that they go to, that are done by all these NGOs and embassies, but they're not applying that knowledge. Application of knowledge is taking what you've learned and making sure that it matters. You know, when they say in high school, when you're learning about algebra, but algebra, why did we learn about algebra if we're not gonna apply it? You know that story? So it's about making that count, making that algebra, making that wood shop, making that theater, making that sports center, whatever it is that you've learned throughout your education, both formal and informal, applying it. So with youth engagement, it's about giving them that platform. Now, one of the things that happened over the years, we expanded. We then became an international non-government organization called World Leaders of Today, and Stand Up Shout Out is the main program. Now, the reason why the name changed is because the government said Stand Up Shout Out is provocative. And they said Stand Up Shout Out can be the main program, but it can't be the official recognized name. So we were telling a lot of young people that tomorrow is not promised. And we're always told we're the future, we're tomorrow, we are the leaders of tomorrow, we are the leaders of blah, blah, blah. But really, in essence, we're the leaders of today. And that's because we have to work and do what we need to do today to secure tomorrow. So World Leaders of Today became our official name as the international NGO. And we deal with good governance, poverty reduction, youth inclusion, conservation, and basically putting young people at the forefront of change, from creation to planning, to implementation, to management, to benefit sharing. It's about mainstreaming of youth within society. I believe that we are the biggest asset in the world, but especially in Africa, youth are the biggest asset. We are the solution and not the problem. So just to come to a conclusion, we work very closely with governments, and this is because of a trip I had in 2014. So in 2014, I had the privilege to go to South Africa, and I was a keynote speaker at a World Youth Rhino Summit in KwaZulu-Natal. And when I was there, I met this old man called Ian Player. And Ian Player basically saved the white rhino from extinction in South Africa. And he's very famous, etc. And he told me, he said, whether you're an activist, a young professional, a conservationist, whether you are a lawyer, whether you want to make money, whatever it is that you are, if you don't work with government, nothing will change. And it was from then that we changed our perspective to not just being activists and standing up and shouting out, but also working with governments to build their capacity. Because in essence, and in the real reality, is that the governments hold so much power and so much resource that if you don't find out to have public-private partnerships, then you're not going to make enough change. When it comes to policy, when it comes to public participation, when it comes to the implementation of these policies, finding out how to work with government is key. And the way I can tell you how to work with government is by building their capacity. Don't go to government and say, naomba serikali. No, go to government and say, I see a gap, I see an issue, I have the solution, let's work together. And that's how governments, especially with the evolution in Kenya and cities worldwide, will see you as an asset, and they will add you to their team, to their partnerships, because they're not seeing you just there begging or asking for your rights. They're seeing you pushing and saying, I already have my rights. And so this is something that I feel that is important, and it's something that I learned very early on, that working with governments and also holding them accountable is key.
Wow, thank you, Peter, for that. There's this question that has really been brought out, and I'd really like your views on it. So there has been issues when mobilizing youths because of the current situation in Africa, and especially in our country, where we have unemployment, and trying to mobilize them really has become an issue, because they really want an economic value of any engagement they undertake. So what is your take on that, and how would you encourage people to be more involved in actually changing their communities, and helping in conservation of the forests and the climate change issues? Kindly.
That directed at me?
Yeah, you can take
Okay.
it, and Scott can also add.
So if we're talking about non-profit or non-government organizations or social enterprises, you have to look at it in a different way in terms of you and your innovation. What is it that you're trying to do with it? What are you trying to do with the idea you created? What are you trying to do with the platform you created? The next thing you need to ask yourself is, in terms of mobilizing people to, whether it's to fund your idea, whether it's to volunteer, whether it's to work with it, you have to understand is, are you selling the dream, or are you simply just asking for help? I think you have to look at it in different ways. Do I want WAS to work for me, or do I want Sinclair to volunteer for me, or do I want Peter Scott to partner with me, or do I want Phoebe to come and take over my company? So what is it that you actually looking for from your target market? What are you looking for in terms of the mobilization? And so when you're mobilizing around a concept or an idea, you need to really know why you're doing it. Are you simply doing it because you want numbers? Or are you doing it because you're trying to sell a dream for other people to own that dream and for you to go and achieve the dream? Are you trying to look for people who you're going to employ in the future? Or are you simply looking for people to volunteer part-time? And last but not least, I think, yeah, sorry, Peter. I think when it comes to the mobilization factor around your concept or idea, it's really about finding people who resonate with what you're doing. Not everyone is going to agree with what you're doing. Not everyone is going to be able to add value. So you don't need to be concerned too much about mobilizing people. What you need to be concerned about is, what are you actually trying to achieve? And then finding the people around you who will help you achieve that.
Yeah, no, great. That's all good stuff. There's a bunch of questions on the chat. So should we just start answering them? I mean, it seems we should just start.
Okay, Peter, thank you for that. I'd really like Grace Kamau to take us through now the question and answers from the chats. Please, Grace, are you with us?
Yes. with us. For the purpose of the video, Peter Mull, if it's not too much of a struggle or too much of a hassle, could you please turn on your camera for everyone to kind of see you and interact with you more, please? And I'd like to give this opportunity to Juliet Oluoch, who has had her hand up. I think I'll allow her to speak. Juliet, are you ready?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Sorry, I
Yeah.
mean, not to get to just for time. I mean, all the questions in the. So should we just not start at the beginning? The people who wrote the question first, we should just answer that first.
Okay, let me just hear what Juliet has to say, and then I'll go through the questions. Yeah, Juliet,
Okay,
please really shortly.
Sure. Thank you, everybody, for the opportunity. I had Peter Mull's journey and everything, and I just want to ask him, how was it when you started when you started the journey to the realization of your dream? What are some of the challenges you faced? And I'm also 20, so I'm just trying to imagine, because I also feel like I have been in the comfort zone. So what are some of the things I should expect if I have to act today, if I have to just act today and take up responsibility and see my dream come true? Thank you. So please share with me what to expect, challenges and everything. Thank you.
Okay, I won't be able to keep my video on for too long, but it's good to be with you all. And basically, when I started this journey, if there's one thing that I did is that I didn't wait for anyone. Basically, I started the journey, and I think the first 6 months I was by myself, and that's the one thing I can tell you is that you shouldn't wait for people to buy your dream. You shouldn't wait for people to come on board. You need to take that step, and along the way, you'll find the people who are going to add the value. Because most of the time, most people spend so much time convincing others about their dreams, convincing others about their ideas that they never start, because everyone will just tell them, no, you're crazy, that's too much, blah, blah, blah. So I think one thing is just take the first step. Momentum is key, and you'll get help along the way. If you're authentic, if you're clear, if you're bold and courageous, then help will come slowly. But don't wait. You need to start, and you need to find out what it is, and it needs to mean something. And so I really think it's important in that respect. Oh, and challenges, obviously challenges comes from lack of resources, getting demoralized in terms of being alone on the journey. And then that only comes when you lose sight of your vision. If you don't know your why are you doing what you're doing? If you don't know what it is you're trying to achieve, then it's easy to get derailed. It's easy to stop what you're doing. And that's why I love what Peter Scott was saying in his introduction when he's talking about his journey. It's because he was focused.
Thank you so much. I needed to hear that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Peter Mull. That was amazing as usual. He's a real inspiration to me, and I really think that many of us can really take up his words. I think I'd pass it to Peter Scott. Maybe you can address some of the challenges that people might face when starting such big social ventures. I mean, ventures into certain businesses and enterprises. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say pick something you care really passionately about, because the number of challenges you can't imagine how many, how many dark nights of the soul you have to go through. You're going to miss Christmas and birthdays and weddings and all of those things. I think the best advice I ever heard was that, there was only one reason why businesses fail. Like literally only one, and that's because the founders give up. So founders quit is why things do not succeed. So it's like you have to fortify yourself in a way. But anyways, just choosing something that you care passionately about is the way to go. But in terms of challenges, you just imagine there's just no money. So you're constantly trying to like run your business with no money. And so, yeah, you just have to, yeah, it's all about money. I mean, people, one of the questions was like, how difficult was it to do it in Kenya? It's actually, the environment in Kenya is quite positive for starting businesses. So it's not like there's enormous like policy or governmental hurdles. It really is lack of access to money, and then your own relationship with yourself to like, when do you give up? Because I think sometimes an attitude with, well, when I was young, people around me had the sense of like, well, if it's hard, it's not meant to be. So it really needs to find that place where you're able to move through those hard spots and lead your team when other people feel like they're failing. You also have to be creative with, find that fine line between telling the truth and being really optimistic. So, that's always a challenge, because there's times when, yeah, you have to have your own relationship with your own spin and your own hype, and everyone has to find their own peace with God around that. I don't know. I don't have like great advice for it, except for that there's great value in, in succeeding in this. You really have to think for yourself, like, do you want to be the next Wangari Maathai, or do you want to be the next Chris Karubi? And it's like 50 years from now, no one's going to know who Chris Karubi is.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to know. So it's really like, don't worry about money. Like, don't worry about getting rich. Like, if you're in this to get rich, or you want to make money, or you want to like have a fancy car, just, it's not like, it's just like pursuing happiness. If you pursue happiness, you'll end up sad. Pursue mission, pursue building a team, pursue greatness, and then the rest just figures itself out. Yeah, just, I don't know. But it's kind of, there's platitudes, I don't know. Just, I guess, just, yes, know that you can succeed and do it. And Africa and Kenya is such a dynamic place right now that there are opportunities that didn't exist 10 years ago or 20 years ago when I started. But anyways, maybe let's get away from the challenges, because it's a bit boring. Maybe we can just talk about some more specifics. It's really, it's just about fortitude on challenges. So yeah, what other questions would you like to talk about?
I think we can now talk about more about, your individual businesses, because I know Peter Mull is very specific on conservation and, getting people and young people to actually come to national parks and actually clean up and do all these, actual activities around the country. In your company, what would you say that, having set up a whole business, how have you tried to keep people in touch with what you're doing and what your goal is in achieving? Like, how have you been able to instill this sort of vision and purpose into each and every one of your people in your team?
Yeah, well, I mean, probably the main way is I address the whole company each month, so that's the opportunity to speak directly to your team. And so, like thanking each individual person in the team, or motivating them. So by reading like user testimonials, or creating that sense of camaraderie amongst the team. But I think it's important that you speak directly to the people that you're leading. And it's fairly easy when it's small, but even when you're small, it's easy not to like organize people together and speak the vision to them. And that's really, really critical. So whether it's once a week or once a month, I think that's the way to do it. What else can I say about that? I mean, we're lucky because we're very mission driven. So people self-select because people want to save forests and they want to save lives and they want to do something with meaning. So we have great people that self-select, and they hear about my mission and they know that I'm not about making money, I'm about executing my mission. So people come to you. So if you're all about money, power, status, fame, people will smell that on the walk. And so you have to make sure that like your integrity is really strong and that people get that you're about the mission. And if they get that, people will flock to you. Yeah, and you just have to be really clear when you're speaking that you're recruiting. So whenever you speak people groups, you're like, I'm recruiting because I want you to join. So I want you to join my team. And so sometimes people aren't very clear about that. So yeah, so I think that that's yeah, it's really just important to communicate. And like during COVID, I addressed my team and said, you know, during COVID, I'm not going to lay off a single person. If we're all going to starve, we'll starve together. So again, like those moments are only meaningful if you believe them and if people get your integrity. So you have to have this level of really high personal integrity, and then people will join you or they'll walk.
I 100% agree with you that it's all about self-integrity and what you want to, you know, ultimately, what do you put first, right? Like, you know, with COVID and the pandemic happening, a lot of things are unsure. And I'm really glad and I'm really happy that, you know, we have someone in industry who actually cares about their, you know, employees and really looks out for them. So that's a wonderful thing. Peter Mull, I know you interact with a lot of government officials. So how does the situation look on the other side where you're trying to inspire government people and people in NEMA and various government institutions that this is actually something we need to do and act on, and in a way that, you know, it's respectful, but it's like it's something that needs to be done? How would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, sure. And I'd love to also say about what Peter Scott just said. Also, there's a lot of questions coming in, so just keep an eye on them because there's many. I think one thing is when you're dealing with anyone external from yourself, you need to know who you are, right? I always say when you step into any room and you sit at any table, when you're at that table, knowing who you are will dictate what you say, will dictate how you behave, and will dictate your outcomes. And so when it comes to government officials and ministries and parastatals and county governments, most young people, when they go to them, they don't really know what they want or what they can offer. They just know they want to work with that person because they're Mukubwa or they're in the government, blah, 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 etc. So I think knowing who you are and really knowing what your mission is and what your end goal is very important, because when you go to any government official and you present to them who you are and what you want to do, they need to see that it's authentic and they need to see the value in it. Because if there's one thing government love to say is that there are thousands of youth, why you? You know, there are thousands of ideas, why you? And I even remember there was a time I had a meeting with the US Embassy and they told me there are 19,000 youth groups in Kenya, 19,000. What makes you unique? What makes you special? And I can tell you, if I was having a bad day that day, I would be so depressed because someone is telling you that you're not special. They're telling you that there are multiple people like you. And so, but luckily that day I was full of confidence and authentic and just myself. And so it's really important when you engage any government or any external entity, you really need to know who you are, be authentic about it, and offer. And again, like I say, serve your gift. Don't try and be unique. Be unique. You know, people are like, we need to try and be creative. We need to know, be creative, be authentic about it. Just be you full and through. And on the other point, especially for those who are talking about going on this journey alone, getting people to come with you, I just want to say very quickly, there's 3 types of people in your life. And I wish someone told me this when I was 20. There's your confidants, there's your constituency, and there's your comrades. Your comrades are not for you. They're against what you're against. So if you're against cutting down trees and then you win that case, then they'll leave you. So your comrades are against what you're against, right? They'll fight against something, but that's it. They're not for you. Then you have your constituents. Your constituents are not for you, but they're for what you're for. So if you are for something, they will be for it as well. But the moment they see somebody else who is also for the same thing, and maybe that vehicle that they're traveling on looks better, and maybe it looks like a better opportunity, they will leave. Then you have your confidants. Your confidants are for you, for what you're for, and against what you're against. Your confidants believe in you. They believe in you, not just your dream. They believe in what you're for, and they are against what you're against. And these people will hold you accountable, and they'll make sure that you're authentic, and they will walk with you. Now, for many youth, we always feel betrayed when someone leaves or someone walks away. But we need to realize not everyone is going to walk this journey for you, and not everyone is going to walk this journey with you. So you just need to be authentic and know, okay, this is someone who is against what I'm against, but they're not for me. But it's okay. We can still work together. So for anyone here, just know who the people around you are, and don't have hard feelings, because everyone is trying to make it. Everyone is trying to achieve their goals. And when you find your community who are for you and against what you're against, fly with them. And for those who you see along the way, embrace them. Do not close doors. Ubuntu is key.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, Ubuntu is key, guys. That's the great takeaway from that. I'm going to jump into some of the questions in the chat. One, how is climate change affecting the planet? I think this question, I'll address it to Peter Mull. If you could give us a brief definition of climate change and what you've seen or how exactly you know it's affecting the planet.
Well, I would like to open it to Peter Scott if he also wants to answer. I feel I'm speaking so much. But for me, basically, climate change is basically the shift and in weather patterns. And, one thing that you have to realize, the human race built its society on weather patterns. We plant a seed here today because we know in 2 weeks it's going to rain. So we built our society on weather patterns, and now the weather patterns are changing. And that's going to affect our food security. That's going to have natural disasters increase and much more. And so with climate change, it's interlinked to everything. Climate change is interlinked to biodiversity loss. Climate change is interlinked to wildlife extinction. Climate change is interlinked to renewable energy and non-renewable energy. So we have to start demystifying climate change as just this disaster that is going to happen in the future, but make it resonate. You who plant a tree, you're linking to climate change. You who is protecting keystone species from going extinct, you're doing climate action. You who has your beautiful stove, and congratulations on almost reaching 1 million, you're contributing to climate action. So we have to make climate change resonate. So yes, it is the change of pattern in weather, but it is interlinked to everything across conservation is interlinked to climate change and climate action.
Wow, yeah, I totally agree. I'd like to pass it off to Mr. Peter Scott to comment on what he thinks climate change is and how his company is actually, okay, he's spoken a lot about that, but in effect, what is he doing to combat climate change and how it's affecting the planet?
Sure. Well, yeah, I mean, again, when people cut down trees that are reservoirs of carbon and then they burn them, they produce CO2. And so, yeah, by cutting down less trees, then you're actually putting less carbon into the environment, and then you can monetize the difference. So then you can sell a carbon offset and generate revenue for your business. But yeah, so the goal is to get people to use less energy altogether, whether it's less LPG, less biomass, less wood, less charcoal. But yeah, I think if you want to know what climate change is, you should just Google climate change. I don't think I need to spend too much time on if you I'm not sure if the question was from someone who's maybe doesn't believe in climate change or something, but yeah. But anyways, yeah, you should yeah. So maybe I'll go to the next question.
Grace, kindly, there is a question addressed directly to Mr. Peter Scott from One Burhan, and he says, he addresses Mr. Scott and says, how open are you to new partnership, Mr. Scott, and how have you been addressed how have you addressed the question of young people in our organization, in your organization? So he's actually asking about if you're open to partnerships.
Yeah, we're open to partnerships, and about 40% of our staff are considered youth. So yeah, the nice thing about manufacturing, well, Burn, is we do everything from R&D to sales and marketing to production to durability to lab to performance testing, all of those things. And so yeah, over 40% are considered youth. And in terms of new partnerships, yeah, if people have a concept that they want to work on, we're more than open to it. But I think, again, because we often see a lot of ideas that sound good but that maybe won't stand any scrutiny, we would, yeah. So if you have an idea for nuclear powered stove, we're probably not going to be too excited about that. But yeah, if people want to bring concepts to us, and then they can be incubated with inside of Burn.
Okay, just to follow up on that.
Okay, and
would you
how
process of getting into that incubation?
Well, it's not a formalized program, but if people have concepts that they want to work on, then they can just contact me.
Oh, okay, then that's brilliant. The next question is, how have you been able to assess the efficiencies of each stove manufactured, and how do you ensure the effectiveness is robust enough to always be applicable when sold to users? This is to Mr. Peter Scott.
Sure. Yeah. Well, we have, we do third-party testing at Keardy. We have our own lab. We have a lab in the US. And then we also have independent third-party entities, whether they're universities or others, who are also doing tests. So UC Berkeley and University of Chicago just did a 1,000 home study of people that were using the Jikokoa, and they said it was single best investment that a household could make in Kenya. So yeah, we've always done an enormous amount of work creating iterative design cycles. So you would need to validate your ideas in the lab for durability, for performance, with users, with design for manufacturability. So yeah, there's this nonstop, constant iterative loop that happens. So you're always working towards continuous improvement. I'm not sure exactly what the user or what the person was trying to get at, but yeah, there's a robust process.
How your business is kind of aligned to fitting the Kenyan market. How are you taking the extra steps to make sure that it is efficient for the Kenyan person? Maybe because they're also trying to build their own business and they might be wondering how do you assess your efficiencies and how maybe they can be able to take a few notes from your company.
Oh, specifically around stoves, how, they want to know actually how to test the stove?
Yeah, I think that would be great.
Oh, well, sure. There's universally accepted testing protocols for water boiling tests, controlled cooking tests, kitchen performance tests, emissions tests. So, those are readily accessible. So then, you need some cases a lab to conduct those. But yeah, when I started, I had a scale and and some wood in a greenhouse. So yeah, you can validate your test with very simple tools. Again, it's kind of a specific. If somebody has real questions on it, they could message me privately, and I can links.
Yeah. And I believe you can drop some of that information in the chat so they can get into you to talk to you about more of the specific things that they would like to talk about. Another question is, I think I'll address this to Peter Mull first. How do these young people feel to be a part of your dream? So maybe they're asking, what are your success stories? How have your success stories been like?
Yeah, like I said, one thing I can tell you about young people is that we're very competitive and we very much want the spotlight. And so along this journey, you're going to find people who want to be you, and people who want to be like you, and people who want to destroy you, and people who want to pull you down. So it's the same thing I mentioned about the confidants, constituents, and comrades. You just need to know that you do you, and respect others, and be authentic, but don't have such expectations that everyone is going to resonate with what you're doing. And it's the thing that most people in this social media age is that we want everyone to like us. And when you want everyone to like you, you're not going to have a good time in life. But for me, it's about dignity, giving young people dignity in every way, giving them the opportunities to be more and do more. And I can say I'm a leader among leaders. I create leaders, people who go off, and whether they stay with our organization or they go off and start their own organization, we have given them that empowerment, whether it's directly or indirectly, to believe in themselves and to know that they are worthy. And so for me, it's about ensuring that anyone who joins any SUSO division across the world knows that they are worthy of success, and that they have the ability, and everything within them is what they've been looking for. And they don't need to look too far to find that fulfillment. And to add to that, I think, especially when it comes to COVID-19, a lot of young people are stuck. A lot of businesses are slowing down or shutting down. And this is where you talk about there's opportunity in the chaos. And within coronavirus, COVID-19, and the pandemic, there's a lot of opportunities that we as young people can find the gaps and fill them. And we can play our part, no matter how small or big it is. But like I keep telling people, momentum is key. Whether you're crawling, running, flying, jumping, walking, momentum is key. And so you just need to find yourself moving slowly. As long as you're moving in some direction, you're going to learn lessons and experience. And that's something young people need to realize. Our generation, we need to experience life. We're so scared to try. We're so scared to fail. No, we need to experience life. And it's in those experiences that we'll gain such enriched lives that will help us open many doors.
Yeah. So to that person, like Peter Moll had said, be you and be unique, just work on finding what you need to solve in the world, how you can do it best. Yeah. There's another question here. My society is really a challenge. It's just unpredictable if something will succeed. This going back to what Health Prize is about. Health Prize is about making a global enterprise, or a company or a business that will work on a global stage. So I think this will first go to Mr. Peter Scott, and then Peter Moll, you can address this question right after. How would you position your company, or how did you initially create your company in the US, and when you didn't really think about transitioning to Kenya, or thinking about the society in Kenya on the ground? How did you kind of remind yourself, or how did you figure out how to make your company succeed? Yes.
I don't know. I think I've kind of already addressed that. Like, again, it's really making sure that you're solving people's problems. So yeah, I mean, how did I make sure that it was a success?
No. How because it was this question is saying that it's unpredictable. Like, she felt that it could be unpredictable, that something could succeed. So how would you advise her that that she should not really look at maybe not be as pessimistic about the situation, and look at.
Well, I guess like one thing, like I think what's interesting, like for us, is we started the company around this one product, like let's make the world's most fuel efficient Chico. But then what I saw that my competitors did is that they became kind of one trick ponies, and that after you get that success, you need to diversify. So because things are dynamic, and so maybe the logging ban comes and there's no people have less access to charcoal, which is great. Awesome. Let's use less charcoal. But then you need to make sure that you've got you have like multiple things in the pipeline. again, it's very difficult when you're a startup. Can you really do that? So it's like you need to have this like laser focus, get your product out, but then it, like you also need to be building up these plan Bs and Cs. So managing that again is like really having your ear to the ground. Like, do I have product market fit? And it's like a question every day. So yeah, very difficult to do, but that's the goal.
Yeah, I agree. I will go to the next question. Sorry, Peter Mull, if you'd like to comment on the next one, I think I'll give you that opportunity to do so. Since sometimes ideas change, how do you select which changes are viable? Because the more diverse the ideas become. So I think we had shortly addressed this, but would you like to add to this question, Mr. Peter Mull?
Okay, so there's one thing that is constant, and it's change. Change is inevitable. And I think that's what Peter Scott just also alluded to, is the fact that things change and you have to adapt and be ready to maneuver through the markets as they change. But I think the one thing that the two questions are interrelated for me, because when you say your society is unpredictable and etc., I think that's an opportunity, because if a society is so unpredictable, it means that they haven't found their niche, they haven't found their norm, they haven't found what it is that they believe in and they attach themselves or associate themselves to. And so you could be that game changer, that change maker, where that society that is so unpredictable, you are going to give them something that becomes their national ethos, that becomes their community call. Like, it becomes something that everyone believes in, the same way Coca-Cola, Safaricom, and all these other brands became household names. So I think in an unpredictable society, there's an opportunity there to give them something that becomes a norm. When it comes to knowing how to make decisions, and this is something I said before, when you sit at any table, if you know who you are, what you say will be predicted or predetermined by who you are. If you know your vision, your goal, your mission, everything that comes out of your mouth, everything that you write, everything that you post will be directly coming out of your goal, mission, vision, and who you are. So when it comes to changes and decisions will be predetermined by who you are and where you want to go. No matter what obstacle or what unpredictable crisis comes, if you know your value, if you know your company's value or your organization's direction, then you'll be able to make the decisions that you need to make, and you'll be able to maneuver through the storm. But if you don't know who you are, if you don't know what your product is, if you don't know what you stand for, then you'll fall.
110%. You have to really believe in yourself first. In fact, one quote that I really like is, you cannot attract good things if you're not attractive, right? So like Peter Mull said, you have to, be a 360 person, believe in what you post, believe in what you do, believe in how you talk and how you act towards your goal. I'm seeing that we're really running out of time, and I'd really like us to address one last thing that was on our agenda of the day, which is the pandemic and how our social enterprises on going against climate change, how they're going to look like after the COVID-19. I'd like Mr. Peter Scott to take this, to advise us on this.
So the question is just how is Burn doing during COVID?
Yeah, so I guess maybe how has company been, how will it sort of continue after the pandemic, not during the pandemic, but after maybe January or February, what are you putting in place to ensure that, you're still working towards your cause, you're still producing, and you're still, acting in your vision and your mission?
Oh, well,
Quickly,
I
please.
mean, we didn't see a downturn during COVID. So yeah, but that's yeah, the challenge was planning, I would say, because we projected a downturn, but then we were wrong. And so maybe we didn't do as good a job of understanding product market fit during COVID. But yeah, we actually saw sales increase in some cases. So yeah, we're not seeing a downturn. We're not seeing, yeah, we're hiring more people, we're expanding, we're growing, we're launching new units. So yeah, I think that we were in like the right place at the right time. You know, when restaurants were closed down, people needed to cook at home, and so it actually like increased demand for some of our products. And so yeah, again, it's sort of like, you know, I really liked what Peter was saying, the other Peter, not this Peter, about, you know, in terms of like these really dynamic times when people haven't, you know, picked on their one solution, like this is the time to kind of act. So, you know, yeah, people often think like in a crisis, you know, you need to freeze or go in a hole, whereas that's actually can be like really the time to roll out. So yeah.
Okay. Mr. Peter Mull, you'd like to chip in?
Yeah, no, I think for us, when it came to COVID-19, a lot of projects and things were stopped due to the fact of physical activity was limited. But we then decided that if you can't see the future, then create it. And so we realigned, adapted, and evolved our organization and created a campaign called Create Tomorrow campaign that allowed us to not only go through this storm, but as Peter Scott has said, we have actually grown through the pandemic and expanded and actually done quite a lot of growth through this pandemic just by adapting and evolving and finding those opportunities and ensuring that we don't just stay stagnant, because if anyone knows, stagnant water is death. And so maneuvering and movement and keeping your values and your goals the same, but just finding different routes to use is so important. So I think COVID-19 has affected, and many people have lost so much, but there are those who took the crisis and made it into an opportunity. I think for me, when it comes to COVID-19, it's something that no one saw coming. But again, there's a saying, if you have drought and you're a farmer, I'm a farmer, and we both pray for rain, but as you're praying for rain, I'm preparing my field, and then I join you to pray, but you're just praying. And then rain comes for 1 hour, my fields were prepared, but you weren't. And so you won't yield the harvest. So the story there is always be prepared, always prepare yourself or get prepared or adapt, be flexible.
I totally agree. You can't pray for something without, you know, putting in some practice first. It's really unwise for you to do so anyway. As we come to the end of our webinar, I'd just like for our speakers to say a few closing remarks, just a bit of inspiration, a bit of, you know, just maybe some things that our participants need to know ahead of the week, just so that when they're working on their projects and their presentations for the quarterfinals, that they feel that much more inspired and motivated to continue with their purpose. I'd like to start with Mr. Peter Scott, and then we'll go to Mr. Peter Mull. Okay, Mr. Peter Mull, would you like to give your closing remarks?
Sure. So I think as a young person, first of all, congratulations, you're surviving a pandemic. And I think more times than not, we don't appreciate ourselves enough. And we allow ourselves to get drowned in a lot of self-doubt, insecurities, hesitation, and then you get anxiety, maybe depression, and all these things that affect your mind. And so for me, it's about ensuring that you as an individual know your worth as you walk into a room. You as an individual know that you have something to offer. So as you walk into this is it the semifinals?
The quarterfinals.
The quarterfinals, as you walk into these quarterfinals, understand that you have something to offer. And if you can't answer that question right now, that what it is that you have to offer, find it. I think there is one thing that I know that has helped me throughout my short, long life is loving myself and being so unapologetic about loving myself and being confident in who I am. And there's only space for you, right? And so if you try to be somebody else, then you're trying to take their space. But if you're gonna be you, then you're gonna step into your space and own it. So cheza kama wewe and ensure that you own the space that you have been given, that you're filled with gratitude and self-love, and that you understand who you are and what you are. For me, this world needs 1,000 people to just be themselves. That's all. It just needs 1,000 people, 1,000 more people to be themselves. And by being you, you're gonna paint the bigger picture because you have a spot in this bigger picture. But when you don't be you, then the bigger picture is lost. So I think finding the importance of yourself. I always say, before there's a team, there's an individual. Don't be scared to be an individual because that's what makes a strong team. And just to tell you, the world needs us. The world needs dreamers. The world needs people who are so passionate that they dare to dream and dare to be. The world needs you. You who is here, the world needs you. And don't let anyone lie to you that it doesn't need you because there's a role for you to play. Thanks.
Wow. Thank you so much for coming. I'm so inspired by you personally. I've told you this 1,000 times and I'll tell you 1,000 times more that you're a huge inspiration to people in school and people that just, that are looking for ways to break into the world and do amazing things because many people know what they want to do but don't know how. And I'm so glad that you've come and expressed yourself and, inspired us. All the participants in this call. And I'd just like to really, really, really thank you also for the great work you're doing in this country as far as youth and conservation is concerned. I'd like to pass this on to our host, Elsie Christine, to wrap this up. Elsie?
Hey, thank you, Grace. Thank you, Grace, for that. I'd like to join Grace to thank our facilitator, Wes, and our panelists, Peter, Mull, and Peter Scott. This was a very insightful, informative, and educative session. May God richly bless you. And for our participants, even as you prepare for our quarterfinals, how I pray that every single thing that we have gone through today, what we have learned, let's have them placed into practice. And as Peter Mull said, chezeni kama nyinyi. All the very best till we meet next time. I'd like to close this up with a word of prayer. So let's pray. Thank you, Lord, for enabling us to reach this far, for the insights, for every word of knowledge that we have received from our panelists and our facilitators. Lord Jesus, how we pray that may you bless them, may you increase their portion, and may you help us that we may be able to implement all that we have learned into practice, and may you grant us the strength, O Lord, to be able to excel in everything we do, even as we depart. May your presence be with us today and all the days of our lives. In the mighty name of Jesus Christ, we have prayed. Amen.
Amen.
So before we all leave, I would like us to turn on our video so that we take, it's called an e-snap. I can see Sinclair with that wonderful smile. Thank you. Please, let's just turn on our videos so that I take one.
Yay. Nice. I see you, Gladys. I see you, Peter Moll. Thank you. Thank you so much, YS, and every other person. That was nice. I have. Okay, now we can all say cheese. Perfect. Okay. So all the very best. Thank you so much, Peter Moll, YS, and Peter Scott. May God bless you. Bye-bye.
Everyone, you're free to leave at your own time.